I'm Elias.
I'm Victoria. This is UTalk 2.1, and it's Remembrance Day.
We're here in Ottawa in the Canadian War Museum.
Today we have a special guest, Dr. Kavanagh, who started Operation Veteran.
Hi, Paul Kavanagh. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So, what would you like to talk about?
I'd like to ask you how all of this started, Operation Veteran.
Okay, I come from a military family, so we served in the First World War, Second World War, Korea. I was in the cadets for 2 years, Cadet Corps number 29 with the Royal Montreal Regiment, Infantry. And I'm proud to tell you, one of my boys is now in the Canadian Armed Forces. So, 4 generations have served this country. In 2009, I was here in the War Museum with my youngest son, in the mess, in the cafeteria, right behind a World War II veteran, and he was a beautiful man. He was about 6'2", in his 80s, 84, 85 years old, thick white hair. I was jealous of his haircut, I really was. Dark blue blazer, covered in medals. They were just shining in the sun, well, in the light, in the cafeteria. He had gray flannel pants with a crease you could cut through butter with. And his boots were so highly shone you could see your face in them. He was a poster boy for any veteran. And he got to the front of the line, and all he had on his tray was a little bowl of soup and a cup of coffee. And the bill was like $7.15, something like this. And he opened his wallet, and he was just like my dad in his 80s. He had trouble opening his wallet. He had a tremor, so his hands were shaking. And all he had was a $5 bill. That was it. And he put it down on the counter, and he smiled at the cashier. And the cashier said, "Sir, you don't have enough." And this beautiful veteran backed away, and he started frantically patting at his pants and his jacket. He just didn't have the money. And he stepped away again one step, and he went all red like a tomato. He put his head down. You could almost see tears. It just broke our heart. And the whole cafeteria, the whole mess went quiet. So just imagine that room full of people, not a word. Now I had a $20 bill in my hand. I waved it at the cashier. He understood. And he said to this beautiful veteran, "It's okay, never mind." But the damage was done, and this beautiful veteran picked up his tray, and now instead of being so ramrod straight, was all bent over and slouched. And he just sort of slouched over to a table and sat down. He put his head down. It broke my heart. So I made a promise to myself. I pledged that we'd never again let this happen again in this War Museum. So I came back to the War Museum about 2 weeks later, and you see, I believe it doesn't do any good to complain. It's better to bring a solution to a problem. And so my family and I said, we will promise that any veteran coming to the War Museum from now on will receive a complimentary hot meal. Period. End of story.
And how was that?
And this is fun. There was a graphic artist here in the Canadian War Museum, and we're going to design a voucher. And I said, okay, how about $10? Seems a reasonable amount. And he said, no. A voucher with a face value of $11 for 11 November. They're very good people. And so I make a point of listening to good people giving me good advice and suggestions. So it's a beautiful voucher that says, on behalf of a grateful nation, we wish to thank you for your service. So you have a complimentary hot meal now in the Canadian War Museum with a face value of $11. So I'm very, very proud. And I was told just a few days ago, we have now served over 8,000 complimentary hot meals to veterans. So this far surpasses anything that the Royal Canadian Legion or the Canadian War Museum ever expected. And I owe this to students and schools across Canada, like the students from Sir Wilfrid Laurier School Board and your school, Laval Senior Academy. And I'm very grateful because since 2010, your school's been involved with me. And you always do a fundraiser, and you always come here, and you participate in the ceremony. And I think you're repaying a huge debt of honor to our veterans. And I'm just very, very proud of you. I just want you to know that. And all the other schools from across Canada as well that have been doing fundraising. And I'm very grateful to all students, because without students, none of this would happen. Any other questions?
What are some of the obstacles that you've faced during opening Operation Veteran?
I came to Ottawa in 2010, and I met someone here in the city, in government, who told me I had no value. That I wasn't elected, I had no value. I wasn't a senator, I had no value. And because I wasn't a member in the Canadian Armed Forces as an officer, I had no value. And this is after working for 28 years as a specialist in the health field. Nice to know you have no value. And so I thanked him for his time and smiled very politely, turned around, walked away. And then that's when I started to reach out to schools, like Laval Senior Academy and other schools across Canada. And I said, will you help me? Because I think the future belongs in your hands, the students. Veterans have done their part. Now the students have to pick up the pieces. Whenever I have a problem, I reach out to students, and they'll usually give me the answer. Whether I want to hear it or not, they'll give me an honest answer, and I trust students. So I'm very lucky. That was my biggest obstacle, was being told I had no value. Go home and give up. I prefer to stand and fight back when I think I'm right. And usually when you're right, a lot of good people will help you as well. So I'm very, very blessed to have so much support. Any other questions?
Before your success with Operation Veteran, how did you stay motivated?
I'm a specialist in the field of dentistry, so I do surgery for a living. And I get to help a lot of people. And I think it's the greatest gift you can ever do. You're fixing problems, and people are so grateful, especially when you see a child that has an accident and you get to fix the problem, and the kids never, well, they love you to death. And so every day I go to work, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. And I think it's the same thing being a teacher. You're coming into a classroom, you're teaching kids. Not all kids are going to like you. Not all the patients like me. But you're doing your best, and that's what comes through. So, just going to work 9 to 5, that would kill me. Being able to do surgery and having people thank me for what I've done, it's all the emotion you need, and it's all the motivation that you ever need.
How do you attract people to be interested and expand your organization?
I think the greatest gift I have is being honest. I'll go to a school, I'll talk to the teachers, I'll talk to the principal, I'll tell them this is my background, family background. This is what we witnessed in the Canadian War Museum. This is what other schools across Canada are doing to help. Will you please support us? And usually the right people do the right thing. I have yet to have a school say we don't care. Now, some schools are honest and they'll say we support other causes. There's a lot of good people out there and a lot of good causes. But very, very few have said we will not help our veterans. And so I'm very lucky that way as well. So the trick is you're honest, you're motivated, you have passion. That comes through. And you say please. And you say thank you. And you never take anyone for granted. That's what works. That's what works. People are trying to help other people. That's what motivates people. That's what makes people communicate. So I'm very, very lucky again. I was well taught by my teachers in my school. And I'm very, very grateful for that education I got.
What I learned from Paul Kavanagh is that inaction's impossible. If you see something happening, you can't just let it go. You have to take action.
This touched me personally because I come from a military background. My dad was in the forces. All my uncles, aunts, my great-grandparents, my grandparents were all in the military. So when Dr. Kavanagh was speaking about all the letters that were being sent, it really touched me because it could have been me reading those letters and crying because my uncles never came back.